Okay, how's everyone doing? Ladies and gentlemen, entrepreneurs, innovators, a very warm welcome to our highly anticipated panel today. My name is Omar Elisar, the Global Head of Ecosystem Growth and Business Development at Parity Technologies. Today we have the privilege of hosting two distinguished venture capitalists who have dedicated their resources and expertise to fueling the early-stage ecosystem of Polkadot. James Woe, CEO of DFG, and Mark Katcha, CIO at Copenhagen Digital. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'd like to get started by maybe talking a bit about both of your organizations. Mark, why don't we start off with you? Can you tell us a bit more about Copenhagen Digital?
Sure. So my background is in financial markets and asset management. I had done that for 20 years when I had met Ed Hesse back in Vienna. And he explained to me what he was doing with grid singularity. I was working at a startup, a wealth management startup. And I said, well, this sounds really interesting. Can I invest in it? And because I had made that investment, people said, oh, what's happening with this blockchain stuff? What's happening with this blockchain stuff? Oh, you should start a fund in blockchain. And I said, well, why should I start a fund? Yeah, because the market's hot. And what should I do? Oh, you should trade it. I said, well, no. I had been a professional investor investing in other funds. And the only reason I would invest in a fund if they had an edge, a reason, some value proposition. But then when, in the beginning of 2017, when the ICOs started kicking off, and Ed was now in Berlin, I said, well, now a light went off for me. He said, this is a value proposition. If we could access teams and vet them and vet their technology before they had their ICO, well, that should be something that is profitable. And other traditional investors should be interested in that. So that's how we got started.
Nice. James, go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually first buying Bitcoin back to 2013, 2014. It's close to 10 years. So after actually I heard this from one of my schoolmates. So it's pretty early, so I decided to buy it. So at first it's a bear market, so I didn't get any profit. But starting from 2016, started to get a lot of profit. So getting excited about crypto and digging too deeper about it, and feel this is going to be super, super big in the future. So I start in DFG back at that time and decide to really do the investment. Not only just buy Bitcoin, but also doing investment in the crypto space. So we invest into a bunch of startups, pretty OG startups right now, or unicorns like Circle, like a few other like exchange as well at that time. Then in 2017, I start to notice about Polkadot, and once I learning the vision about it, I feel pretty excited about it. So we decide to make a investment start from then. In 2019, 2020, actually the Polkadot ecosystem become much bigger. There's a lot of good quality projects came out, so we invest into a lot of good Polkadot ecosystem projects start from there. And yeah, we keep supporting it until now, and we were still supporting the Polkadot ecosystem. So that's my story.
Fantastic. So I'd like to jump in a bit and talk a bit about both of your Web3 investment thesis. Maybe, James, we can start with you. Tell us a bit about your thesis in the space, and how does Polkadot fit into that? We know that you're obviously, DFG is a prolific investor, made a ton of investments across different ecosystems, but definitely a lot within Polkadot.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. I think for us, on the infrastructure side, you need to have real innovation, right? So not just like trying to solve the problem at the same vertical, right? So if you just imagine back to 2017, then Bitcoin faced the problem of scalability. Then you have all these kind of hard fork came out, like Bitcoin Cash, BSV, whatever. But that's not going to solve the problem because you are basically trying to solve it at the same vertical. Because if you want to really be a step ahead, then you need to have better technology and great vision. So it's not like the same thing. So what Polkadot does is definitely a step ahead toward Ether, and also other layer one is basically we enter into a multi-chain where you are going to kind of face the problem of the cross-chain, then Polkadot is here to solve the problem. So the vision here is great. It's real innovation. I think based on that, then this is the first trigger. Then we will consider about whether we should make an investment or not. The second is more about execution. So once you have a big vision, you're trying to solve a really hard problem. Then how could you realize that vision, right? So you need a strong team, strong community, and strong ecosystem to realize the vision. So I think Polkadot is on the right track in the past few years. I think, but we need to be more aggressive and trying to work harder and see whether we can do more stuff in the crypto space in the next few years.
Mark, Scitel Digital is a Polkadot-only focused fund. Tell us a bit about that.
Not exactly. So we do have a couple investments outside of the ecosystem, but as we've gone on, so we're on our second fund now. The first fund, the largest investment was into Polkadot, and that was mostly informed by our good luck of having Ed as our first advisor, and we brought two other advisors. One is Gavin, and the other one is Aaron Buchanan, if you guys know who he is. And so the first fund went well, and we started this fund. I think we closed it in the beginning of 2022 and have been investing. So we warehoused some investments in the Polkadot ecosystem. And as time went on, so our primary thesis is about value creation, which sounds ridiculous in venture, in blockchain, but what's the real value proposition? So we'll miss a lot of hype things that'll go up really high and then they go away, because that's not what our thesis is. And so over time, we found that Polkadot is by far the best ecosystem, the best technology platform for teams to build on and to build something meaningful and useful.
I'll take that answer. So, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of venture capitalists in the past, and even be one myself. I've met folks that are happy cutting checks by, taking lunch with founders just to get to know them a bit. And I've met other venture capitalists who have a very codified and rigorous approach to making investment decisions. I'd love to hear a bit about both of your decisions, or decision processes, rather. James, maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
Sure. So I think the most important thing is do innovation here. So I just don't want the project to repeat what other people does in other ecosystem. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Just giving an example. So if you guys finding an angle in whatever sector you work on, then you think this is going to solve the problem, and this is purely innovative, then I think we will consider about investment. So that's, I think, the most important investment thesis in our firm.
Mark?
I concur completely. We do have, so we manage other people's money. So we do need to be extra careful, and so we do have a formalized process for reviewing potential investments. But at the end, if you really boil it down, how does something deliver value? And novel is better than copying and iterating on someone else. And even though we're investing in technology, we're still really investing with the teams and with the founders. You can pivot on the business case, you can pivot on the tech, you can't really pivot on the founder. And so what we really look for is integrity, as far as we could measure it, for hunger, for tenacity, for somebody that's not going to give up through adversity, because we all know there's quite some adversity in these markets.
Absolutely. I think especially at the early stage where you both play, the founder-driven approach, I think, is probably the right way. I mean, I'm curious, how many times have you made investments that have had one purpose or one kind of business objective that have pivoted to something completely different? shortly thereafter?
Well, that's a good question. So I can give an example right now. So, but we invested after they pivoted, right? So Aventus is one of our portfolio partners. They started out as a live event ticketing application blockchain. And shortly after their tech was ready, COVID hit. So live events really wasn't going to make it. And so they did what they needed to do, is pivot. And they're having amazing success right now. So it's almost necessary. So many of the top successful companies started out as something completely different, like Instagram, for example.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because, business is business, right? So if you're starting project runs, probably raise a couple $1 million, it was supporting your runway for probably a year or two. Then if you are working on something, it's not going to work in a year or two, then you have to shift your focus, right? Otherwise, you get stuck there, then you are not, for just giving example, I mean, metaverse is kind of at very early stage. So people are talking about metaverse a lot in the last ballroom, but right now in the bear market, I mean, there are very, very few users in the metaverse space. So, if you are not preparing for your project for the next decade or long time, raise money for a long time, then you probably have to shift the focus. So I think in some certain degree, I mean, shifting focus is necessary. So once you face the problem in reality, I would say.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about your investment thesis. We've talked a bit about your investment approach. I'd love to jump into getting a better sense of your portfolios. Maybe talk a bit about maybe some recent investments that you've made that you're particularly excited about. Mark, actually, let's start with you. Congratulations. I know the round with Mythical Games was just formally announced. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so Mythical. So that doesn't really fit a normal investment for an early stage investor. We do have a double mandate. So one mandate is private investment, earlier stage, but at least private, before something is listed, whether it's an equity or a token. And then in the depth of the bear market, we have the ability to buy listed, let's say, distressed / very low price tokens, which are plentiful at the moment. So Mythical is neither, right? It's fully priced, but it's absolutely transformational. So there are many video games on blockchain that are starting out from the blockchain side, and the games suck. And people wanted, play to earn, didn't make it, and is not going to make it because it really is. It doesn't make any sense that you make money by playing an enjoyable game. It's the opposite. You pay money, or you pay something, your attention, your time, to play an enjoyable game, and that's the benefit that you get. So Mythical goes at it from the other side. So John has an amazing track record of success in gaming and in video games. And by putting blockchain behind the scenes, but having blockchain there, it enhances the experience for the players and will create value. And that's what we're looking for. But for Polkadot, it's especially transformational, because as this comes into the ecosystem, it cross-pollinates so many other different parachains and applications within Polkadot. And that's what we really look for. So I kind of think of it as finding pieces to a puzzle. I don't know what the end puzzle is going to look like, but I look for pieces that go together and that can work together and make the whole way more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, for us, I think, because we invest into more than 50 different Polkadot projects, so mention some name, didn't mention the other, sounds unfair. I think we are doing, investment in both primary market and secondary market. So I guess, right now there's a mismatch on the secondary market as well, because we see a lot of VCs raising a lot of money in the primary market willing to deploy that capital, but there's so few, institutional investors on the secondary market, right? If Tesla come in, they just buy Bitcoins, but they are not just buying the other like small coins, right? So there's not like a big crypto hedge funds, in the market, partially because of the regulation reasons. But that gave us actually more motivations to buy good asset on the secondary market because there's only retail investor here. So if in a bear market, you don't have a lot of retail investors. So the price on the secondary market is very attractive. So we buy a lot of crypto, Polkadot asset, including DOT itself, like R-Star, Moonbeams on the secondary market as well, and a few others. So that's one of our recent investment. The others we definitely keep a close eye on the new things in the Polkadot space. We invest into Tense Network in the Polkadot space, and also we invest into a lot of great infrastructure which is supporting the Polkadot ecosystem. For example, investing into ChainSafe, which is a very good company, and also investing into Ledger recently, the largest hardware wallet supporting Polkadot and a lot of Polkadot asset as well. So we've been actually deploying our capital. We think probably it could be the best time for VCs to invest right now. Of course, before the bull market, you need to deploy your capital. Otherwise, you will not get any returns. So that's really a good time right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. So we've talked a bit about your portfolio. Okay, you make an investment in a company. They join the family, so to speak. How do you then work with your portfolio companies? What is the platform for support? Mark, I know I attended Lugano, your event in Lugano earlier this year, which was a smash hit. What are some of the other services or support components that you kind of put out there to help your portfolio companies thrive?
Sure. So when I started out, I thought we would just be passive investors, sort of invest and then turn up again in a few years and make a bunch of money. It didn't work out that way. And so what I found was there was no way that I was just going to let it go when we had stuff that was down. And I said, well, this is decentralized. Even though I'm not in the team, I can help because that's the whole idea of the crypto model, right? You have this token and then you incentivize all different types of stakeholders. And so we were a stakeholder too. So it kind of rolled up my sleeves and went to work with some of the teams, adding value wherever I could. And so that started out in like capital market functions because from my background. And then it came to more like ecosystem types of assistance. And now, and that was as I was learning by doing, more or less. But now what we do have more of a process where we really try to find what other investments that we have can work with each other. And it's actively happening. And it kind of brings a tear of joy to my eye when I see a business partnership announced between two of our portfolio companies.
Good point. I think for us, to be a value-add investor is super important in crypto space because good project didn't, need capital. There's a lot of VC will chase them for giving the capital. So it's important to give a lot of supporting for our portfolios. I would say two things, right? The first is probably more direct supporting from us because we're still holding massive amount of DOT. If, the portfolios want to get a purchase slot or whatever, we are happy to use our DOT to support as long as the proposal makes sense for us. We also operating node service, so we establish node for a lot of Polkadot projects. So right now we doing this in house and staking our own asset. But if other people want to use our node service, we are happy to do so as well. So this is more type of like a direct support. The second I would say is more like a indirect support. So there's a big network in our firm. So there's a bunch of Polkadot project, bunch of non-Polkadot project, infrastructure project. I think there's a lot of synergy that all the portfolio can create together. So we can help, for the portfolio to finding these angles, working for more on partnership and building more connection for our, portfolio as well. So also I think the indirect support is also very important in our firm. So so we trying our best to give our support to all the portfolios.
That's great. So I want to touch on an interesting point just made around having portfolio companies do business together. Obviously, one of the key points for Polkadot is interoperability. And I'm curious how that seeps into your investment thesis with Polkadot. Is it highly prevalent? Is it something that is not yet thought about too early? Where are you in your thinking there? And are there any other unique attributes related to Polkadot that you take into consideration when building out your portfolio? James, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, I think that's a good point. I think, but in the Polkadot space, just checking out the portfolios, they probably already know each other, right? So I think the support we give more is more about like connections outside the Polkadot ecosystem, bring the resources into the Polkadot ecosystem. So that's really the things we can give more to the portfolio in the Polkadot ecosystem. So that's my point.
Mark?
We're always thinking about it. It's really, really important adoption. So our thesis or mandate for this fund is adoption. That means others have to be able to use it. We want to be able to use the product. So unfortunately, I was in the green room and I missed the demo from Kilt and Deloitte because I want to be able to use the KYC. I don't know how many people have small companies and have to deal with accounts and counterparties in different jurisdictions, but KYC is a real pain in the ass. And to have to do it and redo it all the time. If I could have a reusable credential, that's awesome. And I want to be able to use that. And so we're always thinking about, okay, but I'm not the only one. There are plenty of others, and also in the blockchain space. And oh, wait a second, we didn't really invest in DeFi because of regulatory compliance issues. Because a very important part of for us as more traditional investors is really being careful that stuff is not clearly going over the boundary of what's regulatorily acceptable, and DeFi probably isn't, right? At least but it's getting there, and will go there. And if there could be a kind of DID that just gave a credential that says, okay, this wallet is able to participate and it's attested by some regulatory agency or someone that's allowed to do that, well then that will make DeFi regulatory compliant, and that's a massive use case that we don't talk about because it's not that close to happening, as far as I know, unless we'll hear a surprise soon.
So I'm curious to hear a bit about, we've talked about some of the unique attributes of Polkadot and your thesis and how it ties to that. What are some of the challenges with the ecosystem that are on your radar, and how do you think about circumventing them and mitigating that risk as you deploy capital into the space and as you try and help it thrive? James, you can...
Yeah, sure. So glad that you asked about the question. So I think, yeah, for sure, there's a couple of problems here in the Polkadot ecosystem. I think we have great vision, great technology, great team to realize the vision. But there's slightly some small problem here. For example, it seems to me at least the inflation is slightly higher than expected. Of course, you got like probably 8.7% of the inflation every year. So this is slightly higher than expected. We probably need to kind of maybe lower the inflation by 2 ways, right? Creating more utility for the DAO tokens, and then probably in cutting the supply a little bit. I think that's one small problem. The other is more about how to really attract all the users into the Polkadot ecosystem, how to do the massive adoption, right? So we build a lot of great solid infrastructure, but we need a lot of great application to help us generate all these kind of users, bring them into the ecosystem. So we haven't seen really the so-called killer app in the Polkadot space yet, but we will. So I think this is also another problem. But my point is like, it's actually good so we can discuss the problem and difficulties in the ecosystem, right? So of course we have a chance to fix it then after we realize it. So this is actually good. Just imagine compared to Polkadot, maybe Solana ecosystem, everyone thinks Solana is very, very good, very, very good, but people don't realize how shit, SBF is, right? So after this all happened, then Solana just go down, I don't think they can even recover, right? So, before they realize the questions, there is a problem, there's a massive hole behind it, in FTX, right? Nobody knows about it. When it happens, then if FTX crash and it impacts Solana, not. But for Polkadot, if we are willing to discuss all the problems, we find a problem, fix that, then we are still grow in a very kind of good ways. So that's my point.
Absolutely. That's why we're here, James. We're taking notes. There's only 5 minutes left, so there's a couple of other topics I want to hit on rapid fire. We saw yesterday Bjorn the CEO and Gav speak about the future. How does it make you feel when you see leaders like that talking about, visions that are 10, 20 years and, in the future and thinking about the future so long and have such advanced visions? Like what does that leave you thinking?
Jeez. So, when Gab gives a talk about something novel, I need to watch it a few times to really understand what the hell he's talking about. So I hope I'm not the only one. I suspect I'm not. But just to have him out here speaking, because he's been kind of silent for a while. And I think a lot of people want to hear from him because he's just an absolute visionary, right? And to have him here talking about the future, he's thinking like 5 steps ahead already for what is a technology, existing technology that a lot of the others are trying to copy and are not having success copying. And so it's great to hear them out here, and especially Bjorn. I was really happy with the content of what Bjorn was talking about. Because sometimes, when it's a bear market and prices are down, it's kind of depressing and gloomy, and we can lose sight of how early we really are in this space and with this technology, and that it's coming. It's really coming. We're seeing it happening. So enterprise is important. Retail and everyday use is really important, and it's not quite here yet, but I think we're just at the cusp of it really starting to happen.
On the topic of the bear market, I think it's no secret anymore. We're in a bear market. Valuations are down. Round sizes have come down. Capital isn't being deployed as freely. What's your sense? Is there still dry powder out there, or has it all shifted to the AI crowd? I think a lot of people in this room are probably wondering that. James, you want to?
Yeah,
I think James always has dry powder.
Yeah, I think overall, bear market, 2 things, right? The first is about the overall economy, right? The monetary policy. Right now, Federal Reserve is still adding interest rates, so it's very hard for us to see a bull market this year. So, but I'm pretty positive about the market probably in 2024 and 2025. So we will see outside environment become better. And I think internally, we just need to have more triggers, like what I said before, like the killer app. Once we attract more users in this space, then people get excited and then see this is okay. We have really something people can use, and then we will have another bull market. So I'm not too worried about both of them to happen, but I just think we need to be more patient about waiting for that.
So, on the back of that question, what are some of the key trends you guys are following that are getting you pretty excited right now? We saw DeFi have its moment. We saw NFTs have their moment in the collectible space. We saw, real-world tokenization try and do something early on in this space, maybe be too soon, probably trying to have its moment again right now. What are some of the things that you guys are focusing on that you think are pretty excited? Mark, James?
Well, our portfolio is on our website, so you could see the stuff that we invested with and believe in. We're not going to get it all right. We're early stage. It's difficult. I didn't answer the difficulties of the Polkadot ecosystem. One of them is liquidity. And so when we're very early stage, very often, the teams we invest with will have to do follow-ons, and it's really hard right now to find investors for follow-on investments. So, what was the question again? The main question was what we believe in. Oh, okay, yeah. So, and another question we didn't talk about, but I want to, is about what does success mean for us? Because we get measured, very empirically, how much money, what was your return, how profitable were your investments, that's how successful you were. But that's important and a given, but it's sort of an empty statistic when you're really investing for long-term value, because the market goes through cycles. Like stupid things can get stupidly high prices, and you can sell and be very profitable and have invested in crap. And we really try to invest in long-term value and real adoption, which I think, as we're seeing, we saw the 2 panels before this one, that it's really happening now. But it's not measured in the price, right? So Aventis has a 10 million market cap. They're working with some of the biggest enterprises out there. And it's incongruent. So one of them is wrong. I think I know which one is wrong, but time will tell. And so real success will be, when I use my Kilted to log into my public pressure, where I can listen to my favorite artists and then, not lose my baggage because Aventis is making it happen, or with Heathrow not, tracking it, making sure it doesn't get lost, and then, having mythical games, having 1 million more wallets in the Polkadot ecosystem, and I'm one of them, playing a, very enjoyable game.
I love that. We're just at time. We're about to get rushed off, but I'd love to ask one more question. What advice would you have for entrepreneurs sitting in the room right now who are either trying to raise capital or who have already raised and are sitting on really deflated prices and are hurting right now? What's some advice, some parting advice you can leave? James, you wanna kick us off?
Yeah, I think just keep building, right? So if you keep building stuff, you will get a reward eventually in the bull market, right? So this is the most important thing. If you are good enough, then you're able to raise good capitals. If not, finding us, talking to us, and we will invest. And talking to other VCs, people will invest. So that's it.
Yeah, add value. Have a value proposition. And stick with it. And if you really believe in yourself, and you'll get through the tough part. Maybe you'll run out of money. Maybe you'll just be doing it on your own out of a basement somewhere. But if you really have a true value proposition, that will always win out in the end.
James Woe, Mark Katcha, thank you very much.
Thank you.